All right, here we are again. Welcome, everyone. This is another episode of The Rundown. I'm Sunny Galt. I'm a messenger with United Network News, and we are the news division of United Network. And our mission, our intention is to bring you the real news. So what's really going on out there, because there's a lot of misinformation. And of course, there's people out there deliberately trying to mislead people. And how are you supposed to know how to live your life if you don't know what's going on in the world? So we release a ton of content throughout the week through our in-depth news coverage. That includes local news stories as told through the eyes of our field messengers. I'll tell you more about them in just a bit. We talk about the restoration of our planet and how we're creating this beautiful new earth that we have to nurture and take care of, do things differently. And we also have updates from the Global Intelligence Agency, and they have access to the highest security clearance on the planet. So a lot of people think about security in terms of countries. Oh, I have really high security clearance on, with this country or with that country. But did you know that there is security for the entire world? And that's what the Global Intelligence Agency does. It's changed over the years, and if you haven't heard of them before, you're not alone. That was the idea. These are the people behind the people. And so we've got information about what's really going on this planet. We are in the middle of this giant battle of good versus evil. The good, the light has won, but the other side doesn't quite realize this yet. And as frustrated as we may get with them, if the situation were reversed, and the dark side was winning, which it had for billions of years, we would keep fighting too, right? So I get frustrated a lot. I really wish, the people that think that they're in control of this planet would just give up and let us lead our lives. Let us be the sovereign beings we were created to be with our direct connection to source and get out of our way. They're not doing that right now. We will give you an update on where things stand in just a bit. What you're listening to now, this is a podcast that goes over the stories that we've covered over this last week, because sometimes you miss some stuff. And we do have members that get access to our content right away. If you want more information on that, you can go to our website, unitednetwork.earth. There are also people that just, watch our content about a week later after it comes out to our members. And you can do that too. You can view our channels on Rumble and YouTube. You can just search for United Network or United Network Productions, and the information should pop up. We can't guarantee the content's going to stay up there because we are not afraid to tell the truth. So we try to use certain keywords to make sure that we, stay within their parameters, but some stuff, is going to sneak through. So if you want an exclusive look at everything right when it comes out, become a member and you can get access to that. With this podcast, like I said, it's a week in review. But whatever we talk about here, I always encourage you guys to think critically. Ask your own questions. Do more research of the topics that we're talking about. For a very long time, we just believed whatever the talking heads on TV or maybe even the internet told us. And we got into a lot of trouble because of that. We have to really start thinking on our own 2 feet. We talk about the new earth and bringing that forward. Well, what does that look like? It means you and I stepping to the front lines and creating a new world. And, this is not going to be done by the head corporations and the people that just want to control everything. All of that will start to go away. We're going to actually have to talk to our neighbors. We have to put our cell phones down, God forbid, and start talking to each other, developing relationships, knowing where our food comes from. This is the future of this planet. And these are the types of stories that we talk about because it's important. We don't want you guys to be caught off guard. There will be a lot of people caught off guard. And the people that are listening to this type of content right now, you're listening to it because you are one of those people that are meant to lead the way and help other people in this process. Not be the I told you so's, but be the ones that really, really help. And what I hope is that you get the information that you need from watching our content and listening to our content like this podcast to help you do that better and more effectively. Speaking of this podcast, we are now on the 80th episode, guys. How did that happen? This is a weekly show, so I get all excited when we get to the nice round numbers. Episode 80, here we are. And let's go ahead and dive into this. Here are the rundown of stories you may have missed this week on UNN. All right, let's talk about our field messengers. These are the people just like you and me that are sharing what's going on in their communities. That may be an event that's going on. That may be teaching us how to do something that's unique to their culture. That might be something that's more newsworthy. Hey, traditional media is saying this. Well, let me show you what's going on in my community because that's not being reported. Whatever you're seeing on the TV, and we already know this, right? We already know that there are agendas out there. We believe the best way to get away from all that is have people give the news directly. We all have these little cell phones. Some are bigger than others. Some are really big, actually. And we're able to have these great cameras that are part of our cell phones, and we can go out and, we record each other every day doing silly stuff. Why don't we start recording stuff that really matters and sharing that with the rest of the world? We're really breaking down barriers in doing this because they would love to compartmentalize us. That's what they do with all of their stuff. But the more compartmentalized we are, the more misunderstandings there are, the more, we think a certain country acts a certain way. I know a lot of people think bad stuff about the U.S., but trust me, there's a lot of good people in the United States. We are not our government. And wherever you're living, you are not your government. And you shouldn't be treated that way. So let's start talking to each other. Our field messengers, we have a few different reports that we release through our news updates, each video that we release. And so let's get to this. Let me give you an overview of some of the field messenger reports we had this week. So Calen from Vietnam tells us about a group of people. I think they're all guys. They have entered what's called the Rimba raid. So they get on, I'm going to call them motorcycles. They have some sort of motor on them. Are they an official motorcycle? I'm not sure. That is not my area of expertise. But they're participating in something called the International Enduro event in Malaysia. And like I said, it's called the Rimba Raid, and it was really great. Calvin interviews some of the people that are participating. Apparently, there are 7 riders that are on this Vietnamese team, and it's a 15-day trip, but one of the guys said they had to get somewhere by the 10-day mark, so it is timed. And they're crossing 3 countries. Holy cow. So they're going to be on their bikes. They got to figure out where they're going to take stops and things like that. But the guys are really excited to go on this trip. So we got to learn a little bit more about it. Vahagan. Now, he doesn't live in Mexico, but I'm going to say the location is Mexico because he really encourages us to get out there and to push our limits and to live life. So he and his mom went on a trip to Cabo San Lucas, and he showed us all the really cool things that they did. I'm telling you what, this is for like the thrill seekers out there. So he did bungee jumping, and it wasn't just bungee jumping from like a regular platform. It's like there was this lift that was like hanging in the middle of the air, and then he jumped off of that. It was really crazy. Really cool, though, too. He went snorkeling, got to see all this great marine life. He said the water was really warm. He got to meet a dolphin. So he has these great photos of him hugging a dolphin. We all know the frequency of dolphins. Like, these are amazing creatures. And it'd be really fun just to connect with a dolphin, right? He got the chance to do that. Went to the Ark of Cabo, which is a really popular site. So anyway, if you want to see some incredible video and photos coming out of Cabo San Lucas and maybe plan your next trip, this is a great report to watch. Tony out of Italy tells us she's actually in Tuscany, Italy for this video. And she talks about how wolves were introduced into the area to help control deer and boar populations. Now, the aim was to protect crops. However, these wolves, and this happens a lot of times when humans get involved, we think we're solving a problem and we make something worse. The wolves began attacking livestock. They're also now posing a risk to humans. And so Tony highlights this issue. There's also, there's something with sheep. She was showing us these sheep. Oh, I think the wolves were sometimes attacking these sheep, and these sheep produce this specific type of cheese. So this is how it affects agriculture and other goods that are made, right? She actually said that the sheep, being attacked by wolves has got to be a traumatic event. And so the sheep can't produce the milk right away. Like, they're traumatized by an attack, even if they weren't attacked. Another sheep was, or, a group of sheep were. So this is definitely one of those things that impacts a lot of things that sometimes we don't think about, right? There's people there that are worried about their pets. And so, anyway, she explains the whole story. So thank you, Tony, for that report. Monica out of Romania shows us the pottery of her ancestors. Pottery, she says, is a treasured craft in Romania. It is steeped in ancient traditions. And she shows us, there's some really interesting video if you've never seen how clay is formed. There's some interesting video of someone actually making, I think there was like some sort of vase or something, and then also a bowl. A lot of the artwork she shows us are more platters or plates, but the artwork, so it's not just about making the clay bowl or the clay plate. It is the artwork. I mean, these are works of art. And a lot of the paint was raised, so it's texturized. It's really beautiful, so you have to check it out. Amy out of New Jersey, which is a state in the United States, takes us apple picking. So she goes to a farm in New Jersey where people can do a bunch of different things. We have a couple of those places here where I live. So I live in the San Diego area of California, and we've got different orchards a little bit further north from us. And it's great. These are great events for the whole family. So you can go and you can pick all these different apple varieties. If you're like me and my family, we take some nibbles off of the apples before we still pay for them. Usually it's like according to the bushel, right? So it's not like per apple. And it's just fun. It's just fun to connect with nature. So this place that Amy went to, they also had pumpkins. I think she said they had tomatoes too, and other cool things for the family. So they had hay rides, a corn maze. And then what was cool about this story is a little bit longer story. She showed us all the cool things that she's done with the apples. See, this is where me and my family are a little bit different than Amy's family, because we love the event of going out and picking the stuff, and we're like, oh, what are we going to make with it? And then a lot of them go bad because we don't know what to make with it. Amy did not do that. Amy made bundt cakes, apple glaze, apple jelly, apple butter, probably a lot of other things that she just didn't tell us about on camera. And she used all parts of the apple, which is just beautiful. Love the story. Owen from Zimbabwe takes us to the Zimstock Festival. I almost said Zimstock Festival. So the Zimstock Festival, it's a family event in Zaharari. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. I'm just going to go with it, guys. It offers a day to just enjoy the event with everyone in the family. There are activities. We actually got to hear some of the music, which is really cool music from the area. There was a lot of food there as well. He says there are more than 5,000 visitors. So pretty cool. Maria from Poland takes us on an adventure with children. So there's a small town in Poland, and they are embracing the power of young minds. You guys know, if you've watched the news for a while, I love to talk about the abilities of our kids and how our kids are really set us up to be our teachers. Some parents may have a hard time with that, but I'm looking forward to learning more from my children because they're here on a different mission. They have a different mindset, and we really need to rely on that more. So Maria tells us about this event where they were really exploring kids' extrasensory perception. So they did things like they were stacking colored cups. They were like rolling dice, and then the kids had to say what number was on the dice. I believe this was in a different language, but you could kind of see what was going on, right? They were actually lighting candles, which is crazy. I'm like, oh, that's a little dangerous. They were also tracing stuff. So the adult that was with them would draw an X or something, a circle, and then just hand the paper over to the kid. And they were blindfold. The kids were blindfold. And they would trace whatever, whether it was an X or a, circle, whatever it was, they would trace it perfectly blindfolded, not even knowing what the shape was. And this is a very real thing. This is actually an exercise that I've started to do. I've got flashcards and things, very elementary school stuff, right? Like flashcards with 1, 2, 3, or a group of, a certain item, and there's 7 items. And this is something that I've started to practice. So I blindfold myself because adults have this ability too. We've just spent more time away from source than our kids. And so we just have to work a little bit harder, but we all have this ability, and we have to start believing in ourselves because these are our superhuman abilities that I love to talk about, right? So it was a great story out of Poland. Thank you, Maria, for that. We need to be reminded of these types of things, right? So we can practice them more. Akira from Japan talks about, this is the second report that Akira has done, and he's talking about elementary particle water. Now, if you haven't heard of that before, join the club. I had never heard of it either, but we know that the water, God forbid, we get out of our tap, or even here in the Western world, our water has fluoride in it. It has these other chemicals. It's disgusting, okay? It might look clear, but God knows what's inside of this. So really cleaning up our water is a big part of restoring our planet. And so what Akira is telling us about is, again, it's called elementary particle water. It was developed by this distinguished scientist, and it is said to harness the universal energy with the potential to benefit our health. So we know that our bodies are electric, right? The cells in our bodies, how, blood gets pumped through our bodies and in through our heart. It is electrical. And so it makes sense that if we had water that was electrical as well, that worked well with our body, that it could do amazing things, right? And so in this video, we actually hear from several people, testimonials of this water. And I thought an interesting part of this too was they were talking about, because this is what typically happens. Someone comes up with this amazing invention, and then these corporations, people trying to rule the world, will try to patent it or whatever and take control over it. But they talked about how this water was so unique because it was coming from a certain area, but also it's about the connection to source, and how if you don't have that connection to source, you really can't bring this water to life, so to speak. And I thought that was very beautiful because that's what the other side doesn't have. This is why they're struggling so much. They don't have that direct connection. They could, but they choose not to. And they're trying to do things this crazy roundabout way, which makes things much harder, and they will never be successful. But sometimes you have to fail many, many, many times before you realize that, right? So it's just a beautiful story about this particle water, that's electric, that a lot of people in the area of Japan are benefiting from. And our final field messenger report story comes from Melissa out of Canada. And she shows us a new healing modality that we're calling Into the Blue because the room that you go into, it's a very beautiful space. It's a sacred space. It uses sacred geometry. I believe it's in the shape of an octagon, but it's gorgeous, just very blue when you walk in. And it uses holistic wellness, right? Sound frequencies, light therapy, to correct some of the things that might be going on in your body. And she interviews, I believe she was a co-owner. I think she said she's the owner, and then her sister-in-law does it with her. And they claim to use, some technology from Tesla because it wasn't all stolen, right? You lay on this bed for about 20 minutes and kind of soak in all of this energy, right? And then outside of that blue room, they have biofeedback machines. They're measuring things. They also have a Rife machine that can measure frequencies and help you balance things out that, might be a little bit off in your body, sound healing, just a really nice place. So again, a lot of healing modalities. New things are coming our way. It's very exciting. All right, let's talk about some of the news stories, the more in-depth stories that we did some research on this week and wanted to share with you guys. So, of course, the idea is some of you guys know this information. Share this with other people. That's what we need. We need more people understanding what's really going on in the food that we eat, what's going on in the water that we're drinking, what new laws are being passed that are going to impact you and your family. So if you like these reports, I encourage you guys to share them with the people that you care about. Let's kick things off in Europe. The European Environment Agency released a report, and it was about the amount of chemical pollution in Europe's rivers, lakes, and groundwater. According to this report, more than 70% of surface waters failed to meet clean water standards. Now, we kind of know this, right? That number's really high, but it's good to have this kind of information. They said the key pollutants include mercury, pesticides, and PFAs, which are known as forever chemicals, which persist in the environment and they pose serious health risks.
Toxic forever chemicals known as PFAS have been found in drinking water near Heathrow and Gatwick airports. Exposure to the PFBA compound found near Gatwick Airport has been linked to developmental, thyroid, and liver effects in humans. Exposure to PFOS, also found near Gatwick, has been linked to impacts on the hormonal, immune, and reproductive systems, as well as increased risk to certain cancers. Thames Water did not disclose which compounds were found near Heathrow Airport. Elsewhere in England and Wales, the data is patchy because testing isn't uniform and the results aren't made freely available by water companies. Meanwhile, the EU's limits on these forever chemicals is 20 times stricter than in the UK.
Wow. Well, they said the outdated EU regulations and delays in updating pollutant lists have hindered any progress that they've tried to make with removing this from the waterways. Now, PFAs are widespread in products like cookware and clothing, and newer highly toxic pesticides are slipping past Europe's current monitoring efforts. Mercury pollution from coal burning adds more risk to the situation. And although some EU countries are reducing their pesticide use, the EU and probably every country out there needs stronger measures to meet their 2030 environmental goals. So we know it's out there, but it's good when this information comes out. More people understand the situation a little bit better and hopefully are willing to make some changes. All right, let's talk about peanut allergies. So this has become increasingly common, especially in our children, with even trace amounts of peanuts causing severe reactions in some people. Now, this allergy stems from the immune system mistaking peanut proteins for harmful substances, and then it leads to all these types of reactions, ranging from mild discomfort to life-threatening anaphylaxis, right? Just not being able to breathe, having major issues. Now, initially, the American Academy of Pediatrics recommended avoiding peanuts to reduce the risk, but this caution may have worsened the issue, tripling emergency cases by the year 2014.
We have this modern-day peanut allergy epidemic in the United States. It's by and large a man-made epidemic. Peanut allergies existed in the past, but they were rare and mild. But in the year 2000, the American Academy of Pediatrics decided to tell parents to avoid all peanut butter and peanut products for kids 0 through 3 years of age, with the thought that peanut avoidance would reduce future peanut allergies. They got it perfectly backwards. I tracked down some of these people that made the recommendation, and their answers responses were pathetic. They told me things like, well, we had to tell parents something. We had to tell them to do something. I said, no, you don't. They ignored a basic principle in immunology known as immune oral tolerance. When you're around something the first couple years of life, your immune system recognizes it and is less likely to react. Peanut allergy rates started to go up right in front of their eyes in the first few years. And you know what their response was? We have anti-science parents out there. We've got to double down and get more compliance. We need it.
They were the anti-science people.
Crazy, right? Now, there was something called the LEAP study, LEAP, and it revealed that early exposure to peanuts significantly lowers allergy rates. So again, what they're talking about, the exact opposite. And this is seen amongst children in Israel who consume peanut-based snacks from the time that they're little kids. In response, global guidelines were updated in 2016 to encourage early peanut introduction, leading to promising reductions in allergy cases. Recent advancements like oral immunotherapy offer more hope for managing this allergy and lessening reaction severity, providing a lot of relief for these kids. So this is just a case of, gosh, what were their intentions here? And we could guess on that. I guess we don't really know. But what they ended up doing was the exact opposite of what they should be doing. And I see this all the time too, where people are like pouring hand sanitizer all over them, you know, the whole 2020 pandemic thing. And even now, I am pretty much 100% against hand sanitizer. And the reason I am is because you are getting rid of all of these germs that, you know, could help your body. If your body doesn't experience this stuff, how is it going to be able to deal with it? Now, that doesn't mean we don't wash our hands, okay? And there are some things, you're handling meat and, you know, uncooked meat, things like that. Yes, be careful. But we've become these hypochondriacs, and it's insane. And now information is starting to come out about peanut allergies and what really caused this. And it's frustrating for a lot of families dealing with this right now. All right, let's talk about Temu and Shein. Okay, so these are two popular Chinese e-commerce platforms, but they're popular here in the U.S. They sell a lot of different types of goods. A lot of women know about these, so maybe if you guys haven't heard about it, you know, ask a sister, a cousin, an aunt, a mother or something. I know my mom loves Temu. She's tried to get me hooked on this several times, and I don't like it at all. So how do these companies provide goods at such a low cost? We did some research on this. This is due to a tax loophole called de minimis. This allows them to avoid import fees by sending low-value orders directly to consumers.
Temu is selling unbranded products for pennies on the dollar. And these identical products are being sold on Amazon for a much higher price. And everybody is starting to notice, all because Temu is using every loophole they can to keep their prices low. Temu has a huge tax advantage over Amazon FBA sellers when it comes to importing, meaning that all their cheap Chinese manufacturing partners are able to dodge expensive tariffs, import taxes, and custom duties. The reason that Temu's manufacturers are able to avoid a lot of these fees is because they're shipping individual items into the US, whereas Amazon sellers, people like you and me, are importing crates and containers of our products from probably, to be honest, the exact same manufacturers. But what happens when you import a big number of units is that you have to pay custom duties, tariffs, fees, and things like that. However, if you're only sending in one item, you don't have to pay any kind of customs fees. And this means as an Amazon seller, you and me, we're never going to be able to sell products cheaper than Temu.
It is sad, but true. So apparently now the White House has proposed new regulations to help close this loophole, requiring imports to follow standard procedures with duties and detailed reporting. The change aims to address safety concerns and support domestic industries affected by unregulated imports. I mean, even drugs, guys. This could lead to extra drugs, counterfeit goods coming into our country. And both the EU and the UK are also considering similar adjustments to curb cheap imports from online retailers, aiming to protect local markets and consumers. So, will this impact Temu and Shein? I know a lot of people would be upset, including my mom, if that happened. We'll see. But we shouldn't be, the products aren't that good. Let's just be honest. You may be getting something for cheap, but, we did a story recently on fast fashion that I'm going to tell you about in just a bit. And we talk about all the waste that comes of this. So maybe we should be buying higher quality stuff. We know that it's best to shop locally wherever we can for a multitude of reasons. So maybe it's not so bad if Temu and Shein go bye-bye. We'll see. All right, let's talk about what's in our baby foods. This is for all the moms, the caregivers, and anyone that's around babies. I've raised and still raising 4 kids. They don't need baby food anymore. But this is kind of a scary story. So let's break this down. An investigation into store-bought baby food raises some pretty big concerns about the safety of commercial products for infants. Studies show that popular baby foods contain dangerous levels of toxic metals like lead, arsenic, cadmium, and mercury, which can affect brain development and behavior. Some baby foods also contain pesticide residues and additives like corn syrup, that is so bad for you, soy protein isolate, and carrageenan that may pose health risks. Additionally, there are microplastics found in the packaging that can contaminate the food.
Here are some of the reasons why I've never trusted these squeezy pouches. Food contact plastic has literally hundreds of chemicals that have been proven to leach out that cause cancer, DNA damage, or endocrine disruption. Baby food pouches come in disposable packaging, and inherently, since it's disposable, manufacturers will use the cheapest possible materials because they know you're just going to throw it away. Plastic is bad on its own and leaches both microplastics and those toxic chemicals even when it's cold. However, when plastic gets hot, it leaches exponentially more. And guess what? All those baby food pouches are cooked and pasteurized in those plastic pouches. The only exception would be baby food pouches that are stored in the refrigerated section.
Yeah, those pouches, do you guys know what she's talking about? Those have become really more popular in the last 10, maybe 15 or so years. I know they were just kind of coming out as my kids were getting out of baby food. Obviously, if you can make your own stuff and you know what is going into that, anytime you can make your own food, whether it's for your kids or for yourself, that's great. If you can't, look for organic options, although be wary of that because the labeling can be kind of misleading. You just want the most fresh ingredients possible. And sometimes that means getting food like you and the rest of your family would eat from a farmer's market, blending it up, and feeding it to your kid. Speaking of kids, in the UK, they have announced something they're calling the nanny tax that raises national insurance contributions for domestic employers, increasing expenses for families employing nannies, cleaners, gardeners, anyone that works out of your home domestically. This change, alongside rising national living wages, adds financial pressure to parents, especially single parents and mothers. With childcare costs climbing, many families are facing some tough decisions, and government-funded childcare options are reportedly insufficient to meet demand. So you may think, we'll just, take them to a daycare and handle it that way. Well, what if there's not enough daycares? A lot of daycares and smaller businesses closed after COVID. So what are you going to do, right? A lot of those nurseries, like I said, went under for various reasons. They are underfunded. Families are now struggling to balance work and childcare, potentially leading some parents to even leave the workforce. So got to keep an eye out on that, right? Let's talk about TikTok. And yes, it's impacting kids, older kids, usually around the teenage years. And this problem is continuing to grow. There are many teens using this app on a daily basis for entertainment and to connect with other people. However, recent investigations reveal significant risks associated with prolonged use of using this app, right? So if they're using it for a long period of time, which it's designed to do, take a listen to this. Internal TikTok documents indicate the company's awareness of addiction and mental health issues in their young users, yet priorities remain focused on engagement over user well-being. Surprise, surprise. The app's algorithms quickly hook users, while content moderation often fails to remove harmful material promptly.
This is the reason TikTok is so addictive. This app is designed to abuse your dopamine system. Dopamine is a chemical in our brain that drives the reward and motivation circuits, and our brain is designed to always want to get as much dopamine as possible. So this is what social media apps do. They are designed to give you as much dopamine as possible so that our brain gets tricked into thinking that this is all it wants to do. And this is exactly why an app like TikTok uses primarily short videos. Shorter videos means more videos. More videos means more dopamine. And so your brain starts to lose interest in doing anything else that gives it less dopamine, which is practically everything that exists in the world. Studying, working, even hanging out with your friends. And all that you really want to do is sit at home and watch TikTok videos because your brain is fried to the point where you don't have the attention span to do anything else.
You know, as a parent, I have seen this firsthand, not necessarily with TikTok, but with being on your device constantly. I was just, let's say, having a conversation with my middle son just this morning who didn't want to do anything but be on his phone. This is a problem, guys, you know, and even with me, I understand the dangers. I am doing stories about the dangers of it, and it's still an issue in my house, right? So it's something that we have to overcome and have these difficult conversations with our kids because they're capable. We were just talking about this earlier. Oh my goodness, our kids are capable of so much. They're here for specific reasons. And they're getting addicted to these stupid phones, right? So parents are encouraged to use tools like family pairing to set screen time limits, which we do in our house. But we need to have these discussions. We need to talk about online safety. We have to talk about, encourage our kids in other ways. Get them out of the house. Get them doing other things, you know? And if they are on TikTok, then they need to be aware of those potential dangers and to use the app responsibly. Earlier, I was talking about fast fashion, and that ties into our next story about using synthetic fabrics and how these fabrics have dominated our wardrobes. Why? Because they are affordable, because they are convenient. But here's the thing, their impact goes far beyond their price tags. These synthetic fabrics, which results in, you know, all this different fashion that's made from these fabrics, they are made from petroleum. What is petroleum? It comes from the oil companies. What else comes from the oil companies? Your pharmaceuticals. You see how all of this is tying in here? They are making these man-made materials. And if you want to know what type of materials we are talking about, polyester, nylon, acrylic, all of these are essentially plastic. We think of plastic being something that, you know, you got to knock on and it's kind of got a hard sound to it. No, there are different ways to make these plastics, and you know, they're promoted for their durability and ease of care, right? So you can like throw them in the washing machine, but all these little particles are coming off, right? It's not good for it to be on our skin, first of all. We are absorbing it through our skin. At the very least, this is going to, you know, cause some skin irritation, if not worse, because we know it's ending up in our organs and other places as well. But think about what it's doing to our environment.
Here's how fast fashion is literally wrecking the earth. As of 2019, 62 million metric tons of apparel was consumed globally. 57% of all discarded clothing ends up in a landfill, and that's not even talking about the material that's wasted during the production process. Speaking of production, the fashion industry uses 1/10 of all the water used in industrial practices. One cotton shirt consumes about 3,000 liters, whereas the average person drinks anywhere between 700 and 1,000 liters per year. To lower prices, companies like these will turn to materials of lower quality. These are typically synthetic materials that produce plastic microfibers that enter the oceans. And approximately 35% of all plastic microfibers are from the fashion industry. Lastly, the fashion industry is responsible for more carbon emissions than all international flights and all maritime trading combined.
Scary, huh? Well, the fast fashion industry, which is fueled by synthetic fabrics, it thrives on disposable clothing and exploitative practices. Yet, hope lies in the growing awareness of sustainable alternatives, including eco-friendly materials, secondhand shopping, which, by the way, there are some amazing places to get really good deals out there, quality clothes. In fact, most of them are brand name items. They're just secondhand. Most of the blazers and the jackets that I wear on the news are from online secondhand stores. They're great, very durable. You know what else is durable? Sunflowers. Sunflowers, you like that segue? Sunflowers are more than just bright summer blooms. They play a key role in environmental science through photoremediation. This is a process where plants absorb pollutants from the soil and water. And this method was notably used after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster to remove radioactive metals. And that's exactly what they did. They planted a bunch of sunflowers in the area. And now you should see the Chernobyl area. There is life. There is wildlife. It is thriving. Now, they tried this in Fukushima as well, and it didn't quite work out the same way, right? So we're still kind of testing out how to use sunflowers, but it is low cost and an eco-friendly alternative to traditional cleanup methods. The photoremediation highlights nature's resilience and potential in tackling our very messy environmental issues. And our last story is about issues with fake turf. And I'm not necessarily talking about fake grass that you would have in your backyard like I do. I'm talking about the turf that is making up sports fields around the U.S. and even internationally. So this is made of something called crumb rubber from recycled tires. And here's the crazy thing. There's a lot of regulation around how to recycle tires and what you can and cannot do. But once the tires are chopped up into itty bitty tiny bits, then all bets are off. It does not matter. There is no regulation around that. However, these things are still highly toxic. It's causing a lot of health issues with players, specifically goalies for soccer. And there have been a lot of soccer players that have developed cancer as a result. And there are people that are trying to get exposure for this. They're trying to raise, awareness about this. They're coming up against a lot of red tape. But even if it's not cancer, guys, there are a lot of injuries that can result of this because it doesn't move like normal grass. Normal grass will give way, right? It might mess up the grass a little bit, but the planet knows, okay, I'd rather mess this up than mess up your ankle. That's going to be a whole other injury, right? There's a lot of NFL players that are now saying, hey, we don't want to play on artificial turf. Right now in the NFL, at least according to the research I could find, about half the fields are artificial and half the fields are normal grass, that they play on. But even beyond injuries, this is an environmental hazard. These tire pieces are non-biodegradable and they require a lot of maintenance. Not only that, but the fields themselves, because the turf part of it, the grass part of it gets really hot because that's plastic. This is like plastic everywhere, right? So it gets really hot, so you have to spray it down. And then every time you do that, the runoff, all of that, those microplastics and everything from the tires, where is that going? Where is that ending up? Is that ending up, back into our water? Is that going into our food that we're consuming? It's a mess. And there are cities like Boston and Los Angeles, they are reevaluating the use of these crumb rubber turf. Should they allow this? Should they not? Some cities are starting to have bans on this. So we are seeing a shift, but it's something that parents should know more about. I'm not saying your kids shouldn't play sports. I've got two boys that play football, and I believe both of their turfs are artificial. Am I going to pull them out of football because of this? No, but at least I understand the situation more. And if possible, it'd be nice, can you practice on a turf that's not artificial? Are there other alternatives? We have to work together on this. The world isn't going to change overnight, but we have to raise more awareness wherever possible. All right, so here are some updates from the Global Intelligence Agency Operation Reports, which Kimberly Gogan does. And last week, we talked a lot about the election. And this week, it's not so much about the election. It's that these Trump operatives are trying to get money for their projects, and they're projects that are anti-humanity, most of them. And they're wondering why we're not giving them any money. We are not obligated to give the president, which is not even a ratified president in the Hall of Records. If you want to know more about that, go back and listen to last week's podcast episode because we talk about that. Trump may be, according to the media, the president-elect of the United States of America, but he is not ratified. He wasn't ratified the first time that he ran. Neither was Biden. The last ratified president was Obama. So it's been a while since they've done anything behind the scenes by the rules. I know Trump is a polarizing figure. You love him, you hate him, and for the rest of us, we're just trying to move past him. But to understand what's going on now, you really need to have the big picture. So forget his tweets, forget what he looks like, forget all the people he's offended, okay? And let's look at this from a spiritual perspective, because there's something to be said for if this was a fairly non-rigged election, if the people were able to speak a little bit through the ballot, which is unclear at this time, but if he actually won, that does say something about at least where America is. They're ready for some sort of change. Do they know what that means? Probably not. Most people are not awake and aware. But at least that means they don't want the same of what they've had. So I think it's important to look at this on a soul level. You may hate Trump. That's okay. But what is his intention here? What is his soul's purpose? And that's what we're going to talk about. We're actually going to talk about Trump's soul. And I guarantee you're not going to hear this anywhere else. Here's Kim.
Trump. Where does Trump fit into all of this? So he is part of the Order of the Black Sun. His operatives are these same SSP people that now would like to be the masters of the universe. Sounds like some kind of strange movie, I know. Trump was kind of a unique individual. He was one of 7 human beings that were born with a hybrid soul. And this particular hybrid soul would have been what you call a neutral. It was not only part neutral, it was also part AI generated. So he wasn't an anti-human necessarily, but as a neutral, he could support the dark or support the light. The other beings also could have done the same thing. Their job as human beings on the planet, when they were around, now they haven't been around for a long time. The other 6 had been gone for thousands of years, more than a couple thousand years, and some of them were as far back as 300,000, 400,000 years. So these are souls that were only placed here by neutral source for one purpose. And that purpose was to reestablish balance on this planet. At a time of transition, when we became too dark, we were 79 or so percent dark and 21% light on this planet. During a dark age, the threshold had not been crossed, meaning we had never passed that 21% that was mandatory. Therefore, there really was no reason for external regulation at that moment in time because it was a dark age. Now, the light forces never stopped fighting, and over the last several years, as you know, and you've been listening to me talk and probably listening to others as well explain that we're going into a golden age. We crossed that threshold quite a while ago, but it was within this last year that we had crossed the threshold. And the year meaning it was from November of last year to November of this year. And this is very, very important to understand when it comes to what's happened over the course of the last couple of days. So this being was actually put here to reestablish at the time when the light became too light. He was supposed to bring back the darkness. Now, that appointment was given by neutral source, and it was on a soul level. It wasn't on a human level or a president level or a USA level or any other kind of level. Now, knowing that he was a hybrid with a predominantly dark soul because he was born into the order. And he was born into the order so that he could take their side, because it's not like source doesn't see everything. And it's not like anti-source didn't see everything. And it's not like neutral source didn't see anything. And they all knew that there was going to become a time when we started to move into a neutral age. And his job was to create balance. My job at that point in time was also to create balance. Hence the reason why there was some support there at that time. Did they actually adhere to the rules of creation of balance? No, they did not. Was he fully aware? I don't know. Who knows what the dark side wanted? Were they still trying to do their conquer the quest, which meant they fully conquered the light 100%? Were they still trying to move away from the regulators? Were they trying to force us back into a dark age? That's entirely possible. So therefore, they probably convinced him he was something or other that he really wasn't, because they do try to convince a lot of people that they are something that they are not. So it wouldn't surprise me in any way if they tried to convince him that he was, working for God or some kind of angel or some kind of something. But no, he was just a hybrid. And that was the job. The job was, you work for the dark, I work for the light. We now need to create balance, and here we go. No balance was actually created, which is why we ended up in the situation that we are in now, which is actually a positive for us. It's a positive for the light forces. It's a positive for humanity. It's ended civilizations all throughout the multiverse because they were no longer viable, and that's why they can't tune into Tokyo anymore. So back to the Orange Man for a second. What is walking around this planet right now playing the role that you see in the public eye? You have two clones. As we talked about, it was just a few reports ago, there was a big facility in Mongolia under the ONGI monastery in Mongolia, and it was enormous. And that was one of the major cloning facilities left on the planet. When I say left, there were two other main facilities as well. One was under Arkansas. No surprise there, home of the Clintons and everybody else, but it was huge. It got a lot of power during the time of things like the Trail of Tears and all those kind of things over the years, but it was definitely a large cloning facility. The last one was in Paraguay on what you call the Bush Ranch, those hundreds of hectares that they have there in Paraguay. That was the other location. So that was 3 locations in the world. There were some smaller facilities here and there, but, probably not anything that could have produced what these facilities could have. So let's talk about the Trump thing. Okay, so there are 2 clones. One is from the Mongolia facility. The other one is from the Arkansas facility. It is not unusual for the Order of the Black Sun to take a person that they have seen in Looking Glass or have gotten information through an AI in the past, for them to immediately at birth clone a person they know that at some point in the future is going to do X or Y. Just in case, because remember, they have to keep their plan going and they have to keep their timeline going. So they would create additional humans to walk the planet. Do clones have the same type of soul? No. It's one thing the humans have never gotten right, and even the others that were helping them would not allow them to have the knowledge, I should say, so that they could actually clone a soul. So the souls that enter into the beings of the clones are not souls of their choosing. So they're just, in these particular two clones, they're regular human souls. So there had to be a lot of training or whatever over the years. I don't know if they all hang out together, they learn each other's lives. Who knows how they do it? Perhaps they transfer the information into their brain. I don't know. That's why they don't look quite right, because even genetically modified spliced humans don't bear all the same features all the time. So that's the differences you're seeing. Is that actually Trump walking around? The answer to the question is no, it's not. It's two other babies that were born in a petri dish and probably a false womb at some point in time in one of these locations. The other few that walk around are actually people that have similar size and similar build to the original, and they are close enough in their skeletal, form and whatnot to undergo plastic surgery. There's a movie that somebody reminded me of today called Face Off, if you want to know how that works. But they go undergo all these modifications and that kind of thing, so they look like that person. They can even adjust vocal cords and all kinds of stuff to make it sound like that person. And you've got about 3 of those or so that I could find walking around the planet. So when you ask me, I'm not even going to say you asked me. I'm going to say there have been some people that have made some kind of rude comments about, there's a rant and why is it always about America? This is not about America. This is about a worldwide domination plan, now a universal-wide domination plan by an organization on this planet that means, let's just say, I shouldn't say means, that has no good intentions for all of humanity. So there's more to the story sometimes, and while I appreciate some of the comments, obviously there's a lot of lovely people in there too, but some of the people just, thanks for the rant and blah, 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 and I know you're having a bad day and I can understand that, but there's things in this universe that you don't understand. And I have explained enough to all of you that he is not a president to me. That is who he was. He is no longer here. That soul is no longer in existence. But that doesn't stop the deep state from trying to get it back. As recent as this morning, matter of fact. Okay, so now we understand the purpose behind having this conversation last week and why there is no longer support for the balanced plan. It wasn't my decision. There was a declaration. He's been gone since January of 2022. The declaration was filed in 2023 in January to move into the golden age. The Giver of Life declaration was filed. Now my orders have changed and we're not doing balance anymore. My job is now to aid in ushering in a golden age.
I think it helps to understand the big picture, right? Because we can get so caught up in the politics of everything and people's personalities and really get triggered. But we're all here to remember who we are and to go back to where we came from, to become one with Source again. And we all picked up these different roles. We've agreed to play out these roles to better understand how everything works, to have these experiences. So next time you get triggered by Trump. Think about this, because the end goal is to get back to source and to become one with everyone once again. And like it or not, Trump or whatever is there, or whatever the SSP people are doing now, is helping us get there. I know we want it to be faster, and happen yesterday. I get it. I'm in that boat too. But this is a process, and we're doing, our whole planet is doing this. The whole multiverse is doing this. And we've got this one role to play here on Earth. So I hope that helps anyone that's really struggling with the Trump stuff right now. Sometimes I get really ticked off at what he does or what his people are doing for him. But think about it from the big picture. That really does help. Okay, so continuing with Monday's report that Kim gave, this was 11/11. Big deal in my family. I was telling you about this last week on the podcast. 11/11. My twin girls were born on 11/11. And this year happens to be their 11th birthday. So they turned 11 on 11/11. We actually took photos of my girls at 11:11 a.m. Pacific time on 11/11 as they were turning 11. They actually weren't born right at 11/11. That would have been even crazy. But they were born at 1 something, so I got a 1 in there in the afternoon. Anyway, let's talk a little bit more about 11/11 and some of the other shenanigans that happened on that day. Kim was telling us, she had a statement, if you remember, from Friday, because she wasn't able to do a GIA report on Friday, but she did mention to us something called the Anti-Genesis Program. Sometimes it's called the Anti-Genesis Project, the Alpha Anti-Genesis. There's multiple names for it, okay? But what is this? Because the deep state was really hoping something was going to happen on 11/11 in their favor, as they always do. They always think something's going to come up and, help them regain control of some system, the financial system or something. It never happens. But still, let's talk a little bit more about the Alpha Anti-Genesis Program or project and what it did in the past and how this actually ties into Trump.
So today, being 11/11, in preparation for this, the deep state has been running around the planet actually since Friday. Some of the places that they went to were places on Earth where there is space junk specifically geared for the Anti-Genesis Program. It's called the Alpha Anti-Genesis Program. You could also call it the Anti-Source Genesis Program. And by Genesis, we mean creation, all of creation. So you would see all kinds of various dark and light, I should say false light, and neutral, meaning dark and light. So it was both in one little neat package. Space junk in particular locations. Now, for some odd reason, this was put in place back in 2012. I do believe that Marduk had a hand in it. I'm 99.99% sure of that. And there have been other times throughout history where the Anti-Genesis Project kicked in. Each time the Anti-Genesis Project kicked in, it was because the light forces were winning in a dark age, and it wasn't either time yet, or there were some other decisions that had to be made, but that meant that we became too light. We overshot balance. We did not bring us back from 79% lost to, say, 50%. We ended up going to 60% or even 70% or even higher. Or there have been at least 3 or 4 times where we have actually broken the threshold. So in other words, we passed a multiverse where we had less than 21% darkness. So at these times in history, and in Earth's history, not just Earth, this happened in other places as well, But in Earth's history, you would have seen things like floods. Wars started here of non-humans. You would have seen a lot of things take place that seemed like an apocalyptic type event or an extermination event where a lot of humanity that lived here on this planet died during those times. And this was all part of the Anti-Genesis Project. So let's talk about how the Anti-Genesis Project works. We discussed why it happens, but let's discuss what it actually is. So the creation of the Anti-Genesis Project, and there is also something called the Anti-Source Genesis Project too. So it could go either way. It was a creation of neutral source as a regulator of the multiverse to make sure that no one broke the covenant. That's no race, not the human race, not any other race, not the Draco, not the Anti-Pleiadians, not the Abraxas, not the Red Queen, not anybody would break the covenant. And this goes for hundreds of trillions of beings throughout the multiverse on both sides. If by chance the covenant came to a point where either side breached the threshold, neutral source would step in, create a being, in this case a human that would walk the planet, in order to attempt to create balance at a time when we became too light. And as you know, it's been months now, since we broke that 21% threshold. So this occurrence would only happen or could only happen on one day out of the year. That day is 11/11 at 11:11 a.m. What the deep state was expecting was portals to start opening, first obviously over in the oceanic region and in Asia, and then that would follow throughout Earth, where each neutral source has both dark and light portals, so there's 9 of those each. And then there's one set of portals, as we've talked about in the past, that is for source, and one set of portals, as we've discussed in the past, that was for anti-source on this planet. Now, a lot of that has changed. However, that didn't stop the deep state from going to all 36 portals and just sitting there waiting for this to happen at 11:11 a.m. in all of these locations. Now, they figured that there were 3 main contenders because these would have been the highest level 9 neutral source portals on the planet. One of those locations was in the Gobi Desert of China. One of those locations is down the street here in Silverton. And another location was in the Matterhorn in Switzerland. So they thought their best bet to win this game would be at the Matterhorn. Now they knew that they were at a disadvantage because the being that was to usher in the Anti-Genesis Project to protect the dark side of not only humanity, but the entire universe, was gone, was dead. This actually makes sense to me because now I understand why they dragged that cold, dead body around the planet several months ago at different times of the year or whatever it was to try to get the soul to come back. What they don't understand, it was a hybrid semi-synthetic soul. It wasn't created by Source the Creator or even anti-Source Genesis anti-soul. It was for a specific purpose only, and that was to create balance. It's not going to come back because it's no longer needed because the balance program has been canceled. So That didn't stop the deep state from doing what they did. Now, here was their bright idea. Try not to fall out of your chair laughing, because I was like, they're doing what? At the Matterhorn in Switzerland? Really? So they figured their best bet was a woman. They thought that they could possibly achieve with some space junk and the secret space program's knowledge, having worked in the cloning facilities, they could probably manage some kind of a soul swap. And they chose this woman because they figured, well, she would be a good candidate for this soul swap. You do know this person. It's a public figure. And her name is Ivanka. So apparently, she is very used to following the orders of these SSP operatives, or secret space program operatives. She's probably feels very threatened by these people. Pretty much whatever they say. So she went to the Matterhorn facility with these people and attempted at least once to try to do this soul swap. Well, there's really nothing there which would help them achieve this, but it didn't stop Chucky, and King Charles there, or whatever that was. By the way, King Charles is dead. You're probably going to hear this announcement in December, because people only die in December when there's no business to be had. That's what they're talking about. We'll see. But anyway, back to Ivanka. So, of course, nothing happened. The portal's not there. The pillar's not there. The anti-Genesis program had been canceled anyway, and there was no need for the balance being to come back, and the soul went back to source.
So when Kim said this, when I was watching the video, when the video first came out, I was like, okay. You know how you know that something happened for a reason, but you don't really understand the reason behind it? So as I told you, my twin girls, so 1 and 1, 2 individuals come together. They're twins, were born on 11/11. I took the photo at 11:11 a.m. on their 11th birthday. I had a feeling the whole day that not the taking of the photo, not that that was significant, but there was something going on a subconscious level that my girls were involved with. I know this sounds crazy. And I had no idea that Kim was going to talk about this, but she specifically mentioned, that they were waiting for something to happen at 11:11 a.m. And I still don't know what it all means, but I do not believe in coincidences. And I know my girls are light beings. I don't know where they're from, or I don't know their mission and everything like that, but they are very special girls. And I know they had something to do with this. I know that sounds crazy, but I couldn't believe it when Kim came out with that report, because I knew that time was special. I didn't know why, but I knew it related to my girls. Now I'm asking Source. Source, can you please explain this to me? What did my girls have to do with this, being on the light side and countering whatever the dark was trying to do, not even aware of whatever they were doing? Because most of the times as light beings, we don't even know. It's just our being here and our DNA, merging with the earth and everything, that we're on a mission and we don't even realize what our mission is. Someday, Source is going to explain this to me, because there's a correlation and I'm not quite sure what it is yet. But still interesting. 11/11, very interesting day. Even the deep state was trying to do, they were up to their old antics. So all that was Monday, guys. That was a busy report. On Wednesday, Kim did another report. She was talking about there was a meeting to discuss the treasuries leveraging the banking system. This was the deep state. How can they prolong things? As we said a million times, they have no money. They are running out of options. And they're trying to get around current leadership as much as possible, okay? The Pentagon knows that that's not really Trump in office. This goes back to Mike Flynn and how he went to Mar-a-Lago. Kim explained it on the news a while ago, but he went to Mar-a-Lago to meet with Trump unannounced. Trump wasn't ready, whatever that means, and he knew something was up. So now all of the Pentagon knows that that's not really Trump too. They're all lying to the American public, obviously. So current leadership isn't really going along with the Trump train. There are rumors that BRICS could break up. Russia apparently is trying to leave. They've been distancing themselves. Their whole currency thing that they were working on is going absolutely nowhere. On Wednesday, Kim talks about something called unknown country. We've talked about this before, but we're going to break it down a little bit more because the deep state was trying to, specifically the Trump operatives, they were trying to get access to unknown country. Now, to understand the significance of that and what they were trying to do, Kim breaks down, again, this was on Wednesday's report, what unknown country is and what they were trying to do.
Unknown country is named unknown country for a reason. Unknown country was named that because nobody is going to take unknown country to court. Well, who? International court or otherwise. Unknown country was formed by Marduk and the trio there of draconian death up there at the top as a way to control governments around the world. Just like every other structure, financial or otherwise, there was I hate to say it as a front organization, like everybody knows the Fed, everybody sees the Federal Reserve, excuse me, everybody sees the Federal Reserve, but that's kind of a front organization. So as it relates to unknown country, the United Nations would kind of be that front organization. The United Nations takes on the role of many different things. Number one, they appear to be a membership organization. These are things that you would hear about. They appear to be a membership organization for nations. They have a Security Council that's supposed to be the Security Council for the world. They also have a health department, as the World Health Organization or Anti-Health Organization. And they appear, they have a number of organizations within the UN that control things like energy, what you can use for energy, if it's nuclear energy. There's also monitoring organizations for that. So they're kind of like the daddy or mom to countries around the world. And this is what you see in the public eye. The Federal Reserve is the same way. They control all currencies in the world, according to what you see. They would also be the regulator for all banking institutions worldwide, not just in the US. They would also, in the past, be the face front for new allocations of new currencies from any country around the world. They also print US dollars there, along with some of the partners. They would also be printing other currencies, partners being De La Rue. AB Corp also prints all of their bonds and those types of things in the financial sector. In the media sector, you would also see the United Nations playing a huge role in the control of media organizations. So as far as like fronts for unknown country, these would all be them. Militaries and intelligence agencies would also be considered arms and legs of front companies that would actually have worked for unknown country at the end of the day. The same thing with all executive branches and all branches of all governments worldwide. Unknown country would have been kind of in the background. Unknown country did have, or does have, I should say, quite a status as it relates to the structure of the world control systems. Unknown country is the backbone, was the backbone because it's not there anymore. It's now something different. But unknown country was the backbone behind the United Nations. As an example, if you want to ratify a new country, meaning like say, North and South Korea in the 1950s, you would have to get the approval of the United Nations in order to do so. This actually goes back long before there was a United Nations. We had the League of Nations before that. And even before then, unknown country was always behind the ratification of governments worldwide. They were also behind the ratification of anything that the Federal Reserve would do. So if you were forming a new international banking institution or currency changes or any of that, unknown country would always be behind it. Same thing goes for NGOs such as FEMA and other NGOs like the Red Cross and other government service organizations worldwide, other than that are not a part of, for example, the United Nations, the Peace Corps, all of those organizations would also have fallen under the registration of unknown country. Same thing goes for militaries around the world, which are not part of the government structure. Same with intelligence. So the unknown country stood behind and above, for example, the Bank for International Settlements. These are other international organizations that would fall under unknown country. So how did the structure of unknown country come to be? Well, unknown country was always controlled by the highest ranking individuals, possibly non-human individuals, definitely non-human individuals on the planet. It was created to maintain control over all structures on the planet, meaning human structures. It was fed orders and those that were citizens of unknown country by several layers above the individuals that appeared to be a part of unknown country. Unknown country also controlled organizations like the Knights of Malta, the Jesuit Order, other societies, especially as it relates to their world passports. If you had not seen one before, they are on the internet, you can see them, that some of these individuals are registered with a world passport. It's a black passport in which they can travel anywhere in the world if you are a high enough ranking member of unknown country and of your particular society that you belong to. So above unknown country is you had the parents and you had the covens and you had family masters of covens and you also had the Draco and you had other ranks above unknown country. However, it appears that the political operatives were unaware of this. A negotiation took place within the last couple of days between political operatives in the U.S., we know as Duck Dynasty, the Trump people, and some members of the Li family in China, to which they convinced them that the black sun is now, they didn't say the black sun, they just said we, are going to be in control and we need to do this and we need to do that and we need your unknown country codes so that we can bypass her, that would be me, and ratify our new incoming president and make great, wonderful changes in this world. And, it was a big, long story and all of this stuff. And, really any members of the Li family that are left over there, and even the Rothschild family and others, they really don't know what the heck is going on in the world anyway. And, apparently these guys sang a good enough song to some poor members over there. And so they gave them their access codes to unknown country. The other half of the access codes to unknown country, were with the Order of the Black Sun and the Black Nobility. So they figured now they had both keys, and they were all very excited with themselves last night that they had these keys, which they then proceeded to try all night last night and all day today. And they thought this was going to give them some control. But sadly, no. Okay, because above unknown country, there are many other levels of control of political systems, media systems, military systems, intelligence systems, and financial systems, and societies, and NGOs, and others that may have been members of unknown country. And right now, the only one up here is me. So today, as they were hacking away at unknown country with incorrect and very old codes, I took a look at it and I was like, I think I should slap my name on there. So I am now the head. We've always been in charge of unknown country anyway, but now my name is actually on there. So what does this mean? You could look at unknown country as it relates to human structures on this planet as the leader and the executive branch of every nation in the world. You would also look at unknown country as the country that controls all countries. So if you look at all structures and government departments in your country, you would see that unknown country behind the scenes, not you per se, because this is classified information, obviously. But unknown country would be behind it all. It'd be behind the UN. It would be over the World Health Organization. It would be over everything. So they were really excited to try to get a hold of this. Yeah, but no. So my name is now on unknown country. And that would mean that the status has now been reestablished. Any former members, which would have been, for example, family members of the Order of the Dragon, and security members would be Order of the Black Sun, and all of those members are not there anymore. This would also go for large corporations and secret societies and others that were members of unknown country. So those statuses have all been removed from the system, so they can't even see them anymore. And yeah, it's just me now. Will we register, because I know this is going to be your next question, will we ever register other people to unknown country? At some point, yes. But here's what would happen if we do it right now. If we register people to unknown country right now, you will all become a target. Because the operatives know unknown country as the people who control the world. They will be looking for anyone who could actually give them some kind of access to financial control systems, political control systems, ratifying new heads of state, forming new NGOs, funding media, funding military, funding intelligence, because that is the type of people who were actually registered there.
So remember when you were starting to wake up and you saw all of this information online about how Washington, D.C. isn't actually part of the United States, and then you learn about the Vatican and how that's considered its own country. It's not really its own country. It's part of unknown country. And there are many places around the world that are part of this unknown country, which is weird because we think of a country like being all together. And it's not. It's these separate locations where they can, do whatever the heck they want. They're under completely different leadership and rule and completely different laws, right? Apply to them, rules for thee, not for me. And so it's important for us to know what was going on there. So obviously, Deep State struck out again, as they always do. But if stuff starts to come out about unknown country, who knows if it will? I feel like we're the only people talking about that. That is really, really deep information. But now you know what it is. So that was Wednesday. On Friday, I'm actually not going to play any clips from Friday's report. Really good information. Kim talks a lot about currency because, again, They're realizing that Kim is not going to play ball with them, so they are not going to get any money from us. We are going directly to the people with funding once that is available. But that's not stopping the deep state from doing everything they can to either get control of the currency or to make up fake currency, which is what all cryptocurrencies are. Okay? So Friday's report was all about money, but more so than money. So people say money runs the world. Is that actually true? Kim proves that that's not true. Numbers run the world. You've heard of me talk about the Association of Numerical Numbering Agency before. A.N.N.A. If you think about it, numbers run everything in our life. Everything has been assigned a number. May have your name attached to it as well, but you have a number for everything. You even have a number on your house, so people know how to find your house. You have a number behind your birth certificate. You have a number behind whatever medical program you're part of, your driver's license. Everything has a number. So A.N.N.A., and we've talked about this before, is known as the beast. For those of you who are familiar with religious texts, you may have heard about the beast. In the Bible, it's talked about in Revelations, how you're going to get the mark of the beast. Everyone's getting the mark of the beast or you can't participate in society. And those of us who were Christians would be like, I'll never take the mark of the beast. Well, guess what? You did. You did because you didn't understand the system. You didn't understand what was going on. I did too, right? I got a birth certificate before I even knew what was going on in this world. And so we all took the mark of the beast. They literally call, this whole process behind the system, behind A.N.N.A., they call it the beast because numbers rule the world. And yes, this is tied to the financial system, obviously. But when you talk about real control, you're talking about numbers. So Kim takes a really, healthy amount of time. I think her entire report was about an hour and a half on Friday to talk about the numbering system. I highly recommend you go back and you watch it because she gets out her whiteboard and can explain it much better than any soundbite I can play on this podcast. So she talks about the Association of Numerical Numbering Agency, which is A.N.N.A., and then she talks a little bit about cryptocurrencies. There is something the deep state is trying to get out called stable coin. I guess they think if they put the name or the word stable in it, somehow people are going to think it's stable. Do they think we're that stupid? I really hope not. She talks about that. She talks about how they're currently trying to make that work, why it won't work. And it's really a message for the deep state, but at the same time, it's important for us to hear it. And it's very detailed. There was no way for me just to take a soundbite from it. So I encourage you guys, this would have been the report on November 15th. So I encourage you guys, when that comes out, go back, listen to the GIA report if you're interested in those topics. And please stay away from cryptocurrency. I'm not giving financial advice. My husband, actually it was my dad. It started with my dad earlier this week. It was his birthday on 11/11 too. We've got this crazy 11/11 thing in my family. And I called to wish him a happy birthday, and he starts talking about Dogecoin and how it's like going through the roof apparently right now, and cryptocurrency this, and I just tune it all out. I'm just like, I can't. I told my husband, I said, if you want to play around in that, play around with it like you would if you're gambling. And what I mean by that is my husband and I, we've got very strict rules. If you're going to gamble, you have to be okay with what you lose. Do not gamble with anything that you're, just consider it gone. If you're using it for just entertainment purposes, some people go out and go to the movies and they spend $100 at the movies. You could take $100 and spend it on the slots or whatever as well. If you're going to assume that the money is gone, then fine. Gamble, do whatever you're going to do. But if you're trying to use it to make money for some reason, because you don't like your job isn't paying you enough, and you think if you're going to invest in crypto, it's going to do something, please don't. Again, not financial advice, but listen to Kim's report on Friday, because if they can't control currency, the current coming directly from source, which is energy, which is what money really is, if the deep state can't control that, they're going to come up with whatever cryptocurrency they can to try to get control of the financial system. And there's going to be a lot of people that could be hurt as a result. Don't let that be you. Don't let that be the people you care about. That's all I'm saying. On that note, that's all I got for you guys today. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to subscribe, if you want to become a member and get all of our content the moment it comes out, you can do that through our website, unitednetwork.earth. And that gives you access to all of our news updates, our New Earth interviews, where we show you all the amazing things that are happening on our planet and more about your amazing superhuman abilities, because I love talking about that. We also have the full Global Intelligence Agency reports. We talk about restoration. It's a good time. So if you want access to all that, check out our website. Other than that, I appreciate you guys being with me today. Have an amazing weekend. And I will see you next week. This is The Rundown. I got to do my official ending. This is The Rundown, and I'm Sunny Galt for United Network News, signing off.